All right, so we're going to take a look at a couple of statistics graphs. The first one is what's called a histogram. And a histogram is a graph that measures the frequency that things happen. So the way that you build one is you go and you set up bins. So let's say that we are looking at stock prices in a certain index. And so we'd set up bins. It's like, okay, here the bins are going to be $10 wide. So I get a 0 to 10, 10 to 20, 30 to 40, all the way through. And then I look through my index and say I've got 100 stocks that I'm looking at. So I look through all of them and I count up how many of them are between 0 and 10. And then I note that number down. And I do that for each of the bins as I go. And so then what I do is I will graph that. And why am I graphing that is to show me the distribution. And actually, we'll kind of build up the probability distribution. And it's a quick way to look at a data set and kind of go and do things like, hey, that's symmetrical, or that's very skewed to the left or the right or whatever. So let's just go and build one and take a look at it. First, let's go back to class 2. We need to get this data from the Excel primer, and we will download that. I originally started recording this, and I'll save this, using the house data that we used, but then that caused a problem because it was too big. So let's go. I'm in Tableau now. That data that we're downloading is a CSV file. We are going to go to More and hook up to our CSV file. This is opening in my download, so I don't have to go anywhere. Data Excel Primer. Open that up. Now I've got multiple sheets here. I just want to get customer data 1. I'll pull that over, and that's all that we're going to deal with. So now that we have the data in, let's go make the graph. So, okay, I got show me open, histograms right here. Hey, we need a measure. Easy enough. But it also says it creates a bin field. And so we're going to need that because that's going to control the size of these little buckets that we're putting the information in. So let's do this for, let's see, sales or pounds. Let's do it for pounds. I'm going to drag pounds into the row, and it makes a bar chart, but I want to make a histogram. So let's go. It's highlighted. I'm going to hit histogram, and there we go. Let's get rid of the show me. So this is a histogram. So right now I've got these bins, and so this first bin is, there are 25 orders that were 25, try that again. There were 25 orders that fell in this first bin, which looks to be about 0 to 7. That's a weird number. And so the second bin, yeah, it is 0 to 7. A second bin goes to 19, and this is 7 to 14. The third bin, there's 38. So before we talk about the shape of this distribution, let's clean this up a little bit. 7's an odd number. So let's put it down to 5. And so how do we do that? Well, this new quantity, this new dimension got created, quantity pounds bin. So we use quantity pounds. Quantity pounds bin is what controls the width of those bins. So I come in here and I click on the little triangle, because this is how we do anything in Tableau, and we go edit. And this brings up all of the information. So by default, the bin width is actually 7.12 because it suggested that. That's not an easy number to deal with when you're doing with graphs. So let's put this at something a little bit more manageable, which would be 5. And the nice thing down here is it gives us some details, like, well, the min and max of the values are 5 and 50. The range, that's the difference, is 45. So it gives you an idea of how you want to set up your bins. So I go, okay, there we go. So now we have our bin set. So now as I look at this, imagine this is kind of it's a probability distribution. We can see that we've got values here on the top. We dip down to the middle before we spike up again. So this is not a normal distribution. This is not symmetrical data because we'd expect a spike here and it comes down. So technically this would be a bimodal distribution because there's 2 peaks, but we don't have to worry about that. So this is showing us the frequency things are happening. So I've got 25 orders from 0 to 5 pounds. I have 19 orders from 10 to 15 pounds. I have 24 orders between 15 and 20 pounds. So this is what the histogram does for us. And, you know, we can quickly sit there and go, oh, wow, our biggest order is between 40 and 45 pounds. We've had 29 orders in there. But, you know, 5 to 10 pounds is pretty close behind it. and 15 to 20. We don't sell 30 to 35 pounds. We have no orders in there. And so this is what a histogram does for us, is it allows us to break down and see how the data is shaped. So that's really going on with this data. There's no really crazy insights or anything that we're going to draw from it, aside from the fact that we can see we've got a greater amount right here in that 40 to 45 pounds. The generating a histogram is always a great thing to do with data, because quickly we'll be able to visually see, is this data symmetrical? Is this data shading to one side or the other? What's going on with it? So here's a picture of some histograms, so you can kind of see what we're talking about. So right here, this would be a symmetric histogram. This would be a histogram. This is indicative of a normal distribution. So this is one that we'd be able to go, hey, if we plotted this out, this data, we would definitely be able to say, this is a normal distribution. We can use the empirical rule and say that 68% of our data is within one standard deviation and all that. Here is our data that's skewed heavily to the left, which is extreme negative values. So we got extreme small values here, and here's skewed to the right. That's skewed to the right because of the extreme values. And so we have a uniform distribution. It looks kind of like this. It means it's mostly straight. In fact, actually, if we go back and we look at ours, this is probably more of a uniform. I said it was kind of a bimodal, but it's definitely more of a uniform. And then bimodal, you can see we got a couple different peaks, and then multimodal will be a bunch of peaks. I'm not expecting you to be able to look at this and go, oh, it's a bimodal distribution. If you can recognize a normal distribution and skewing to the left and the right, I'm really happy with where we're at with that. And anyway, so that's what a histogram is, and that's how we would generate it. We can do this in Excel. I'm not so much worried about that right now, but it is under the insert graphs, but we'll talk about more of that in Chapter 6. So really focusing more on the definition of a histogram.